Welcome back, everyone. Well, virtual events have proved to be successful in the last 2 years, but the fatigue that people feel now with the virtual world is so real. I mean, I know it's ironic that we're talking about it on a virtual platform, but it's true. And contrary to that, even the most cautiously optimistic people are having a hard time committing to in person gatherings and the risks that we still can't ignore. And the marketing space today versus 2.5 years ago is different, but interesting nonetheless. It's not just in person, it's not just virtual, it's a mix of both now. Hybrid, that is. And one marketing avenue that has seen the biggest leap and change is events. The world is a metaphorical oyster for hybrid events now. So let's now take a deep dive into this. We have some of the best event marketing minds in the business to talk about this. And to facilitate this session, please allow me to call on this virtual stage our VP of Sales, Manish Kumar. He's a sales veteran who has been scaling businesses for multiple technology organizations around the globe. Manish has an experience of over 25 years in the software products and solutions space. His team believes that he has the power to turn, as I always say, good salespeople into great salespeople. His unmatched strategic leadership skills, sales intuition, and sales expertise have successfully led sales and pre-sales teams to achieve maximized results. So here's Manish with our next Fireside Chat. Hybrid events, take your event marketing game up a notch. Over to you, Manish.
Thank you, Paksha, for that embarrassing introduction.
True though.
So thank you, and good evening and good morning, everybody. Hybrid events, we are actually in a hybrid event at this very moment. And so while virtual events have proven successful in the last 2 years, not that we had a choice, the fatigue that has accompanied perpetual virtual events. So I think we'll spend some time discussing this topic of hybrid events, and we have an incredible set of panelists with us today, some of the best marketing leaders in the business. Let me introduce them to you. Our first panelist is Jessica Serami, Director of Marketing Events at GEM, a very creative, agile, global events marketing and sales enablement professional. Jessica focuses heavily on creating engaging customer touchpoints and experiences and driving ideas to fruition. Jessica, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Welcome. Our second panelist, Stacy. Stacy is an experienced digital and event marketer. In a role as a marketing manager for Siegel Scientific, she handles all the event logistics for their customer-focused events. She also hosts and organizes webinars that support the company's ongoing demand generation and customer retention initiatives. Stacy, welcome and good to meet you.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So let's get started. Jessica, I'll start with you. So as the person in charge for marketing events and in your role as a director, what is your usual starting point and what kind of goals do you have in mind in terms of the experience that you want to deliver when you're conceptualizing an event? I mean, is it a checklist?
Yeah. So thanks for the question. I usually start with a framework that's been really helpful by asking who, what, why, when, where, and then wow. So to kind of break it down very quickly, because I know we're in a little bit of a crunch for this one, the who is the audience that we need to attract, and then thinking about how do we need to build something for that audience. The what covers what type of content and schedule, and also kind of what type of event. Is this going to be in person or virtual? The why is, why do we even need to engage this audience? What business impact are we aiming for? The when is that timing. Timing's so important. So, when do we need to host this event so that we do see that business impact actually hit our pipeline in this year or quarter or whatever the goal might be. And then there's also, the where is kind of part of that, if it's in person, if it's virtual, where are people going to be coming as an event platform? If it's for the virtual experience, where are they going to be going in person? And then, that's also when I start to think about the wow. The wow really is, for lack of a better word, the for the gram moments, for that in-person experience. What's really going to motivate people to get out of their houses at this point and join us in person, right? And then, I also think, about the organic networking that we can create for both the in-person people and then also our audience online. And, all that being said, again, I think it's just really helpful with that who, what, why, when, where, and wow. So if you can remember one thing, it would be that.
Jessica, you spoke with a lot of passion, and let me ask Stacy. So Stacy, what do you think sets the hybrid events apart from virtual events and or in person? And what kind of events do you think can seamlessly kind of categorize to be repurposed as hybrid events?
Yeah, great question. So I think the big difference between hybrid events versus virtual or in-person events is the fact that hybrid offers like the best of both worlds. And it does offer, in my opinion, a level of comfort and engagement that you can't get strictly with virtual or in-person. Here in the States, we are seeing a lift on mandates regarding social distancing and masks. But again, people are still a little weary about coming and seeing each other in person. So with the hybrid event, it is the best, again, of both worlds. As somebody planning an event, it allows you to be agile. So for some reason, if you can't host an event in person, you can quickly switch to virtual. But then at the same time, for an attendee, it's also encouraging because if they can't attend for whatever reason, whether it be if they're uncomfortable with attending, at a large event or travel, they just can't make it out, they still have an option to still participate. And to your second question, I definitely feel like any event could be turned into a hybrid event. It just takes a lot of time and preparation, especially if you have a lot of different logistics like swag and things like that. But I find that like trade show events or like, for example, like a sales kickoff tends to lend itself naturally to the hybrid event model. So
Yeah, so I can resonate with some of what you've said. So I'm actually here in the US, in California at this very moment. And I think by the time I return, I don't believe I'll have any meeting in an office. 90% of my meetings are outside the office in a cafe. And out of those, most of the people are actually still not attending office. So there's that, there's a new feeling at the moment that, look, people are still cautious. They want to step out, but they are very, very cautious. Okay. So one of the backbones of any hybrid event is actually the choice of technology. Right? It's a very important. And my question to Jessica is that, what is your what crucial decisions do you need to take in an organization when you're hosting a hybrid event, right? What's your view on a good technology platform?
Yeah, so this is a very relevant question for us right now. We're actually going through it and evaluating platforms for our virtual conference that we're hosting later on this year. One of the things that we're looking for and really considering is the customization and control for our brand. So making sure that we're doing due diligence to understand what we can and can't control and customize with each platform before we make the decision. I've learned from experience the hard way that nothing can be more frustrating than uncovering these limitations when we're already locked in. Another thing is really just kind of sussing out and understanding, does this platform really feel like it represents your company? There are so many virtual platforms out there today, and some have UIs that are a little bit more dated at this point because of all the investments going into innovating platforms for this purpose in the last 2 years. So really finding a platform that you feel can offer your attendees an experience that best represents your team and your company, and that kind of seamlessly can plug into your brand is pretty important as well. And then, from the event manager side, we really care about the UI. So is it intuitive, or does it feel like we're going to have to spend a lot of time ramping and getting used to this platform before we can get up and running? I think another thing, there's so many things that are important. The data, what data can we collect? One of the really, important game changers for these virtual events is that we have so much data to leverage now to understand our customers and our attendees even better. How are we going to use that data and capitalize on it to, kind of ensure that we're getting the ROI from our event efforts? I would say those are kind of the things that are top of mind.
Yeah, and I can relate to some of those because I think sometime early last year, I was also working with my colleague in marketing, Ankush, to look at some platforms, and the data, was a big consideration, as well as the ease of use. How easy is it for you to log in? How easy for you to navigate through the various virtual rooms, the booth or the lounge or the backstage. So yeah, I think I can actually very closely relate because I was involved in something similar, and yes, technology is the platform types are changing very fast simply because the demand is so much. Stacy, let's move on. I mean, so we've kind of got the right technology in place. What about the team to handle this technology, and to make the event a success? What would you think should be the game plan for organizations, and what kind of team should they have in place to handle such an event?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing to talk about is, in regards to this question, is what resources you have available and how many people do you have in your organization to really plan an event. Some organizations only have one person allocated to all event planning and management, and they have to contract out a lot of work, while others have a team. So depending on where you fit, if you're somewhere in between or on either end, I think what's important is to make sure you can do what's achievable and attainable for your team. But general rule of thumb, I like to spend some time outlining the order of events for the in-person event and also the hybrid event. And I like to see where there's overlap or see if there are similarities. And the biggest thing that I'm trying to do with seeing the different schedules is make sure that our schedule is tight as possibly can be, because things happen day of, and also to make sure there's not a lot of dead time to make sure that attendees are still engaged. I think a big thing, and something that we even talked about at the start of the session, was engagement and burnout with virtual shows and events. So making sure that there's not a lot of overlap, or not overlap necessarily, but dead time, so audience members are engaged. And then I also recommend, if possible, having at least one person on site and one person managing the virtual platform. Of course, if you have resources to have like a team of folks who can manage the platform and manage being on site, awesome. But I just recommend having at least one person, both virtually and in person, because it can be a lot to manage two things at once. And if you are somebody who's managing it by yourself, definitely taking on what you can handle, and making sure that the quality of the event is really top tier, because at the end of the day, people want to come to an event that is meaningful, that has value to them.
So maybe does this mean that we have to outsource some work in a virtual and hybrid event, unlike the pure in person, right? In pure in person, I think a lot of us outsourced. Your facility was outsourced, and you had somebody who doing the props and the electronics and so on and so forth. Do you sense the same thing in hybrid events as well?
Definitely, yes. I definitely feel like if you have to outsource for help, to make sure things are running smoothly, then you should. And it can be outsourcing things, maybe not necessarily outsourcing meaning managing the platform, but maybe it could be outsourcing in terms of, hiring a company to manage swag. If you plan on giving swag to your attendees, or maybe it can be hiring somebody that helps with graphic design, so you can offload that from your plate. So yeah, definitely hiring out in, again, doing what your organization will allow you to do. And maybe if you can't hire out, maybe reaching out to other team members or departments for support as well.
Excellent. Jessica, I saw you were nodding, widely in agreement. So is there something that you would want to contribute on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think one, if you're a one-man band and you're event team and you're trying to do a hybrid event, I commend you. That's a lot of work. I do recommend outsourcing where you can in those instances. I also know that like a lot of teams have to be stealthy and kind of scrappy in the beginning to get these kind of events off the ground. So sometimes it's a matter of choosing between the hybrid event model or just a virtual event model. I know that Jem went solely virtual. One, because of the pandemic, but also because it felt like let's not bite off more than we can chew and do something right, get that off the ground and then build upon it. So yeah, just kind of wanted to share that.
Okay. So I think, I'm also looking at the time. Last question. What can enterprises do to avoid drama, right? And make the hybrid event successful? What should be some key considerations?
I would say probably my number one piece of advice has changed since we first kind of started to talk about these topics. I think it would be staying agile and being able to adjust and pivot when you need to, because this environment is always changing, as we know, and just kind of make those contingency plans, know that things might happen and have kind of like the plan A, the plan B, the plan C. And again, the agency support may be to help you pivot when you need to.
Yeah, understand. I think before we kind of sign off, there is a question that has been posted, and actually I had it in mind as well. So a colleague is asking your opinion on importance of platforms like Metaverse for hybrid connects. Has that popped up? Have people started talking about it? Have
Stacy, do you have anything there? I have some thoughts, but
yeah, I definitely also having like a social media background. People are definitely talking about using social media platforms like the Metaverse, and not just the Metaverse, but LinkedIn as well, and YouTube, and even Twitch for hosting these platforms. So, I think the biggest thing is that we can get caught up in the trends and crazes and what's new, but it's all about what works for you and your company. And if there's a place for the Metaverse and for your company, and if you have, potential customers or, business partners there, then I say use it and invest the time and resources in it. But if you aren't finding that they're there, I don't think there's a reason to invest. But yeah, I'll pass it back to you, Jessica.
That's a good one. Yeah.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay. Jessica, Stacy, a short one, a quick one, but wonderful. Really enjoyed this little conversation we had, and I hope I can meet with you personally, both in my current travels or in my future ones, and look forward to learning from each other.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Stacy.
See you later. Bye.
Thank you so much. That was super insightful. And before I let you go, I'd just like to point out that I think one of my biggest takeaway is that while in-person events are great for networking, but somewhere they take away some of the educational value that attendees expect to take away from the event keynotes or workshops, right? And while virtual events are great for the educational value they bring, networking becomes a challenge, right? So thank you so much, Jessica, Stacy, and Manish, for letting us know that it's definitely hybrid for the win. Yeah. So thank you again. And now let's drop off from here and go back to the lounge area and join in our closing note by Mr. Shivraj Asthana. I'll see you there.
Awesome.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all. Thank you so much.